Sandy, could you please call the roll and roll call the committee members?
Yes. Supervisor Malik with Albemarle County.
Here.
Supervisor Galloway with Albemarle County.
Present.
I haven't updated this, but Councilor Oshorn with Charlottesville.
Present.
Councilor Pinkston with Charlottesville.
Here.
Mr. Nelson with VDOT. Ms. Laundrie with VDOT. Do we have either Mr. Murphy or Mr. Espy with Jaunt here tonight? Mr. Williams with CAT. Ms. Monteith with UVA.
Here.
Mr. Wagner with DRPT. Mr. Miner with FHWA. Mr. Koenig with FTA. Mr. Condor with CTAC.
Here.
And Ms. Jacobs with the TJPDC. We have quorum.
Okay, are there any members of the public that would like to provide comment? There's a limit of 3 minutes per speaker, and Ms. Shackelford will keep time. Yes, sir, please come on up. Remind us of your name, sir, and where you live.
Okay, my name is Paul Grady. I live just outside of Crozet.
Okay, thank you.
Back in November, I brought you a revenue sharing project between Albemarle County, UVA, and VDOT to construct an interchange at Leonard's Sandridge Road and add a third lane in each direction on the 250 bypass between Barracks Road and Ivy Road by connecting the entrance and exit ramps. This is a very important project as it will reduce traffic on other intersections and should not just be put on a shelf with all the other ideas that I have brought to this board over the last 25 years. Now I have another revenue sharing project, this time between the city, VDOT, and Kroger. I believe very strongly that a section of Hillsdale Drive needs to be built between Hydraulic Road and Holiday Drive. I won't go into why at this time, but we'll save that for another presentation. I know that Kroger would like to enlarge their Hydraulic Road store, but they can't because of the way the property is laid out and they don't have any spare flat land. If you remember when Kroger enlarged their Barracks Road store, a new ABC store was built at the hydraulic store by filling in part of a very deep ravine. There is still a good deal of that ravine left, and the dirt to fill it in is on site in the form of the redundant ramp that goes from the gas pumps up to Hydraulic Road. If Hillsdale Drive were extended to Holiday Drive, then the ravine were filled in, then Kroger could move its pharmacy drive-through and their secondary entrance from the north end of the store to the south end of the store, thereby freeing up all the area to the north of the building for future expansion. Kroger would get more revenue, the city would get more revenue, and another important connection in the grid would get built. But first, the maximum amount of money that VDOT contributes to revenue sharing projects needs to be raised substantially. If localities are willing to pay half of the value of a project, then VDOT should be able to pay the other half without restrictions. Thank you. Who do I give this?
Mr. Pinkston, Mr. Condor would also like to make a comment.
Yeah, Mr. Condor.
Just briefly, when you get to it on the agenda, I had offered an alternate design for the US 29 North ramp to Interstate 64 West that doesn't impact Fontaine Avenue at all, and of course doesn't require the traffic to turn left across the southbound US 29 traffic. I sent a copy to Sean, so he has it in case you want to mention it when you get to that item on the agenda. That's it.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else in the room to speak?
I'd like to speak.
Yeah, please come on up.
Good afternoon. I'm Peter Krebs from the Piedmont Environmental Council. I'm a Charlottesville resident. I'm here to invite everybody to sign up for the 4th Annual Active Mobility Summit, the Charlottesville Albemarle Active Mobility Summit. That's going to be held Thursday, March 21st at the Wolf Factory. We're very excited about it. Whether you're a cyclist, runner, walker, transit rider, person in a wheelchair, or anyone that's simply interested in a more connected community or promoting active lifestyles, this all-day free workshop is for you. As I mentioned, it's at the Wolf Factory. It's going to be better than ever. It's going to certainly be nicer and more beautiful than ever, but we're also going to have walks in the landscape for the first time ever. We're going to have a happy hour. Breakfast and lunch will be provided. We're also going to have a special focus this time on Move Safe Blue Ridge, which you'll hear more about in the agenda today. That's the Community Regional Action Safety Plan, or Safety Action Plan. We're going to have a community panel, and also, as we have done in the past, we've had collaborative work sessions that have led to pretty successful things that none of us could do alone. You'll be able to sign up for that by going to pecva.org/mobility summit. If you can't wait until March to get started collaborating, the Active Mobility Alliance, which is the coalition that is putting this event together, is actually meeting right here next Tuesday at 4 o'clock. So I hope to see you all, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Is there anyone else online who'd like to speak? Anyone else in the room who would like to speak? Okay, we will close matters from the public, and then we'll move on to general administration. We've got a couple of, well, 3, in fact, new members, and the first one we'll introduce is Natalie Austrian, our new city councilor, and we're really glad to have her. And Natalie, would you like to say a word about your priorities and your interests?
Yeah, nobody told me I was going to get a chance to say something. Hi, everybody. I'm Natalie. I just started on city council. I grew up in Charlottesville, down by Mead Park. I still live there now, in a different house, but a couple blocks away from my childhood home. Went to city schools, then UVA, left and came back. And my priorities are very transit focused, bike lanes, buses, pedestrian accessibility, and to get people out of their cars as much as possible, which is going to be necessary if we're going to hopefully see the density that we're inviting with the new upzoning, and whatever we can do to be non-car centric is generally my priority.
Excellent. So the MPO and the RTP will be right up your alley. Okay,
Yeah.
fantastic. Jason Espy, the John Planning Director.
Yeah, I don't think they were able to make it today, unfortunately.
Okay, all right, we'll look forward to seeing him later.
Yeah.
And Mr. Murphy, Mike Murphy, I don't know if he's online from John. Okay. So we have Ted Reek, who retired, and we've got new folks over at John, so we'll look forward to hearing from them. At this point, I would ask for a motion and a second to accept the agenda, unless anyone has anything they would like to add to the agenda.
I move acceptance of the agenda.
Can we have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, please just raise your hand. Aye. Okay, we have an agenda. The next thing we'll do is we will approve the December 11th, 2023 meeting minutes. There's a copy of that in your packet. Did anyone have any revisions they'd like to offer? Okay, could I please have a motion to accept those meeting minutes?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Okay,
Mr. Chair, I need to abstain. I was not in attendance.
got it. Thank you, sir. All right, so the next piece of our business today will be to switch up officers, have officer elections. So I have really enjoyed being chair for a year. It's hard to believe that it's gone by very quickly, but I know that the new new person taking it over will have a whole lot more experience than I, and I'll continue to learn. So can you give us the recommendations from the nominating committee?
Yeah, so the nominating committee consisted of Ms. Monteith, Mr. Nelson, and Supervisor Malik. Our precedent has always been, since the city was served the role of the chair, that that would alternate each year. So presumably there would be a representative from Albemarle County that would be elected as chair this year. And my understanding is that the recommendation from the nominating committee is that Mr. Galloway serve as the chair.
Fantastic. You good with that, Ned?
Yeah,
Okay, awesome.
switched it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So what do we do next here? Do we ask for
Yeah,
should I make a motion for Mr. Galloway to be our next?
you can do that. We should probably also ask if there are any other nominations from the floor.
Any other nominations from the floor?
Hearing none, is there a motion to elect Ned as the chair for the MPO Policy Board?
Who's the second?
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Congratulations, Mr. Galloway. You may preside moving forward.
Thank you. So then we need to open up nominations from the floor for the vice chair, which is typically then the city goes to that position. And I believe the nominating committee had recommended Mr. Pinkston as the vice chair. Is that correct?
Yes. So as I think about it, maybe we should have chatted with you often. Give her a year to get her feet.
Oh, it's fine.
I figured you'd be okay with that. Yeah, okay.
All right, so hearing no other nominations, is there a motion to appoint Mr. Pinkston as the vice chair? Is there a second? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so Mr. Pinkston, you are the vice chair. Congrats. And then that will take us to item number 5, the meeting schedule for 2024. And Sandy, do you want to review or put any highlights there? Everything's listed on the agenda.
Yeah, sorry, I donated my agenda to your cause, so I might have to review it for your shoulder there. Yeah, so we listed out the dates that are proposed for the 2024 calendar year for the meetings. A couple of things that I'll note is that the last 2 years previously to this, we've had to reschedule the March policy board meeting due to a conflict with an Albemarle County Board of Supervisors work session. So I put an alternate date on the agenda to determine if we need to go ahead and plan to have that a little bit separately. And then we historically have combined the November and December meetings into one meeting. That would be the first Tuesday of the month to accommodate Thanksgiving and Christmas. The other question that I think the committee should discuss is whether you all would like to continue monthly meetings once we adopt the long-range transportation plan, or whether you would prefer to move back to bi-monthly meetings once the long-range transportation plan is approved in May.
I don't have a problem with just sticking with the monthly meetings. I don't know how other people feel.
There's
By the
lots
time
of
I
ones
come
in-
back around to the second, I'm forgotten. So I don't know how others feel about it.
I think we could leave it scheduled as such, and then if for some reason it's just a get-together, then we can punt and cancel a meeting. I mean, so we're not just coming together if there's no content.
Sounds great to me.
So specific questions, would March 27th or March 19th be a preferred meeting date?
So you're saying we already do have a budget?
Yes, we have a work session starting at 3.
3 o'clock. Any conflicts with the night? That's not a conflict. That would be a Tuesday, March 19. Any issues from any board member there?
Check. March 19th. I don't think so.
And what time? Same time? 4?
4 p.m., yeah.
Oh, last. Yeah, 19, okay, there it is. Oh, I do have a conflict, but I can. What alternatives do we have besides the 19?
We've also done it, I forget what we did 2 years ago. I think we did one, maybe on the 28th at 2 p.m. So that the following Thursday at 2 p.m. right before the Regional Transit Partnership meeting.
That's my concern, and I don't know what others have to say.
It probably wouldn't be able to make
Yeah, the 20.
I don't have anything with the RTP,
20th.
28th?
No, 20th.
Oh, 20th, was it the 20th? Or did you say 28th?
I did say the 28th, but there's, I guess when we did that before, there wasn't an RHP.
She did say 28th.
Yes, but is there any?
No, RHP is.
The 20th or something,
yeah.
probably, we had a supervisor meeting.
Thank you.
Well, I wonder, so it sounds like on the 27th, neither you all could be here because of the,
Budget,
would it, and it sounds like, Natalie, you can't do it the 28th at 2 o'clock. Would it, Ann, would you be okay if we just met on the 19th at 4?
Or-
Afterwards, or?
26 is fine with me.
well, yeah, what about 26th? That's the Tuesday before, it would just be moving it ahead one day.
I could do that day.
And RWSA, RWSA might be a conflict.
Hopefully we'll get done by 4.
Oh, 4, okay.
We'll just tell them, hey,
Howdy, that's, okay.
26 is good here.
Sean, you got
Sorry,
any
we got nothing.
issue for 26?
26. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Oh, gotcha.
So
Okay,
it looks like 26 could work at 4 o'clock.
oh,
And then the first Tuesday for the December, I mean, I would think that may work for everyone, it's enough lead time. Didn't work for me this December, but,
we had to reschedule it again.
oh, you did?
Yeah.
That was a board meeting, huh?
Maybe we could do a check on that around June and double check that time with everybody's calendars.
I'm sorry, which date?
That December 3rd, first Tuesday, that's that would be a combined November-December meeting.
That works for me, I don't.
Put it on the calendar, and then we can revisit it in summertime. Great, so then we need to vote on that calendar?
Yeah, so the dates would be as proposed on the agenda, other than the March 27th meeting would be tentatively scheduled for March 26th at 4 p.m. Then we would go ahead and plan to schedule the December 3rd meeting, and we'll check in a little bit later.
All right, so is there a motion to approve the meeting schedule for 2024 as amended?
So moved.
Second?
All right, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, that's approved. So that will take us to item number 6, resolution of support for Ravenna River Bicycle and Pedestrian Bridge Raise Grant Application. And Sandy, you got a presentation on this one?
I do. It will be brief because I think most of you are familiar with it at this point. But you will recall that the MPO has done a significant amount of work to move forward from a feasibility study that identified 2 potential alignments to create a bicycle and pedestrian bridge between Pantops and the Woolen Mills area of Charlottesville and urbanized Albemarle County. So to date, we have identified the need for the bridge through multiple planning documents in both the localities and the MPO planning processes. We completed a feasibility study with VDOT. We went through an extensive public engagement initiative, and we had applied for the preferred alignment that was identified through those processes for a smart scale application. As you recall, the smart scale benefits for the bridge were really high, but we also the project had a very high price tag due to a lot of unknown contingencies, being constructed in an environmentally sensitive area, and not having a good understanding of the mitigation measures that would be required as part of that bridge. And so part of the reason the contingencies were so high, which drove the cost estimates up, was because there was just additional information that we could not know at this time. So our goal would be to find another way to complete the preliminary engineering phase of the bridge in order to get a better idea of what the actual mitigation measures that are required will be, and in order to reduce the contingencies that will be required and get a more precise cost estimate. Just as a reminder, this is the Rivanna River. This is the proposed location of the bridge. So the other alignment was coming in a little bit north of this, connecting to Chesapeake Drive, basically at the Riverview Park. And this committee had determined that the preferred alternative would be the southern alignment, which connected more directly to basically the wool factory development site. Both of these were proposed to land at approximately the same location on the east side of the river, and then there would also be a shared use path that would provide a connection up to the local road network. So we are proposing a resubmission of our application for the Rebuilding American Infrastructure and Sustainability with Sustainability and Equity, or RAISE discretionary grant program. The previous funding amount last year had dedicated $115 million for planning grants. That number has been reduced in FY24. However, in FY23, there was only $750 million that were allocated to the RAISE program for FY23 overall, and in FY24, the total amount has doubled to $1.5 billion. So awards it's a highly competitive process. Awards are based on basically the strength of the application, but also making sure there's variety in the project type. So they want to fund projects with all different types of modes, multimodal, roadways, rail, et cetera. They want projects to be funded in all states, and 50% of projects must be in both urban and rural areas.
I'm sorry, the mic's not working.
The merit criteria that projects are evaluated against are listed here: safety, environmental sustainability, quality of life, community connectivity, economic competitiveness, state of good repair, partnership and collaboration, and innovation. So projects are scored in each of those categories. They're given a rating in each of those. Projects receive an overall merit rating. So if a project is highly recommended in at least 6 of the categories, and all of the categories are responded to, the projects will be highly recommended, which means they advance to a second tier review. In 2023, we met that criteria. So our project was highly recommended. It was identified as a project of merit, and we were encouraged to resubmit the application. So we met that initial threshold. There's more money in FY24 than there was in FY23, so there's a good chance that our application would continue to be competitive. So the scope is the same as we submitted previously. It would be to complete the preliminary engineering project phase, which would include doing some of the hydraulic and hydrologic analysis, the geotechnical analysis, completing the environmental reviews, and actually getting to the point where we're designing plans and looking for cost savings measures. The TJPDC would be the project sponsor and fiscal agent, and then assuming we are able to reach the same agreement with VDOT that we did previously, VDOT will administer the technical aspects of the project. So with that, we have a resolution of support that is in your packet for you all to consider. Applications are due on February 28th. And so we would just ask for your consideration on whether you would like to support the reapplication through the RAISE program for this project.
How much money are we asking for?
It was approximately $3 million last time. We'll have to work with VDOT to update the cost estimate, but should be in that same ballpark.
A lot of work's gone into this, and a lot of community consensus, so I'm very eager to try that.
Right. Any other questions or comments? Is there someone who would like to make a motion to approve the resolution of support for Rivanna River Bicycle and Pedestrian Bridge RAISE grant application? Is there a second?
Yeah, second.
All right, motion was made and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? So that is approved. Should we pause if no one online, is this online, they can't hear us?
Yeah, they can hear you two, but nobody else.
Because I think it was coming from one of these microphones, not those. Those folks online, can you hear us better now?
I can hear Ned and Sandy beautifully, but everyone else is very garbled. And if I can hear you at all.
Is that any better, Gretchen?
I can hear you fine, but I don't know about maybe Ann or Brian.
Can you hear me over here?
I hear Ned very well, yes.
How about Sean?
Can you hear the, say that again?
Can you hear me? This is Sean, not Ned.
Dawn, now I can hear you, yes.
Okay, all right, so I think
Thank
we're on
you.
microphone. Sorry about that.
Thank you so much.
Okay, we'll move to number 7. VDOT project pipeline. Mr. Proctor is online. Good afternoon. Oh, VDOT project pipeline update.
Hello, yes, I'm available. We've got 4 projects. 2 of them are in Albemarle County. One of them's in the city. Well, 2 of them, they basically cross the county line, Barracks Road. We had the original, the stakeholders group meeting last week. We're revising the alternatives, scenarios so that we could develop a public outreach survey, and that should be going out probably early next month. Ivy Road, we're looking to schedule the review meetings for the alternatives from the consultants developing. Those should be early next month. And then we'll have the SWG meeting, stakeholders working group meeting, probably middle to later in the month. And then we will be going out for public comment probably in end of next month for the Ivy Road study.
Is that all?
Unless there's any questions.
Questions on either of those items?
Yeah, so I know both of those are challenging intersections. The one at Ivy's particularly tricky, we'll say. How do you imagine, Mr. Proctor, this moving forward in terms of you're going to get community feedback? What is the end goal for your effort? Is it to sort of get a project to a point where we can talk intelligently about what the options are, or is it to go ahead and take it to the next step of trying to get money from Smart Scale to actually begin work? I don't remember the next stages of this.
So I mean, I can take that too, Joe. I mean, the intent of project pipeline studies are to give you a pipeline project to submit for Smart Scale and other funding sources. So the intent is to get a viable project or projects out of these pipeline studies for MPO and localities to consider for Smart Scale.
Okay.
Now, the timing of them to get completed for this round of Smart Scale is in the air.
Right. I guess my question is particularly with respect to the Ivy one. There are a lot of stakeholders, the university, the county, neighbors, and that is just a really complicated section. How is this effort evolving in terms of communications you all are having?
Everybody's at the table.
Okay.
That's why the county developed a stakeholder group that we are meeting with and running these ideas through. So the intent is for that group to coalesce behind these alternatives that we're going to come up with, so that we've got community support and stakeholder support to move them forward to successfully have a Smart Scale application. To successfully have a Smart Scale application.
Okay. All right. I'll be interested to see what the options are for that.
Me too.
That location, because that is a tricky area.
There's a lot riding on it.
Yeah, no man's land right in there. Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Proctor. So that will take us to number 8, Smart Scale Round 6 project selection. And Sandy, et cetera.
Yes,
That's all.
at all. Depends on how formal we want to be here. Okay. had adopted a policy that we wanted to start proactively identifying our smart scale projects. And then we went through this big update to the smart scale program that the Commonwealth Transportation Board has been working through. So we weren't able to identify our projects early because we were waiting to see what the MPO would be eligible to submit. One thing that I do want to mention as an update from our previous meeting is that the vote in December by the Commonwealth Transportation Board voted to remove land use as a scoring criteria for smart scale. At their meeting in January, they reversed that decision. So smart scale is still going to be one factor that is considered as a scoring initiative or a scoring measure, but it's not going to be a standalone scoring factor. It will be a modifier, which will reduce the impact that it has. So there will be a small benefit from land use, but projects will not receive much benefit from that land use score unless they are receiving scores in other categories. So I wanted to go back and provide that update. So I have been
So
working.
Sandy, does that basically take us, it's not completely back to where it was before, but it's kind of part way back?
It's what the Office of Intermodal Planning and Investment staff had proposed.
Okay.
So basically, whatever your benefit is that you would be getting from land use, you would add up your scores in all of the other criterias, and then based on how many benefits you have for land use compared to the high scoring project, you would multiply the scores in all the other scoring criteria to some sort of multiplier between 1 and 2.
Mm-hmm.
So it wouldn't reduce your score. The highest scoring project with the highest land use benefit, the score would be doubled, and every other project would get something between as benefit.
I guess what I was trying to get at is the old smart scale before these changes were proposed, we're getting something that's, it's not exactly like that, but it's also not as extreme as some people were concerned about.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a happy medium because you're not gonna have projects that are fully funded now just based on a land use score. Because you were seeing projects that were getting funded based on a land use score, which essentially based on where they were located at.
So Sean, you feel like this is a good compromise?
Yes.
So all that said, that could potentially impact how well some of these projects perform based on that change. So we have been working with VDOT to identify the projects that the MPO would be eligible to submit that are at an appropriate phase of project readiness that we could prepare for applications. The other thing that's really important to remember through all of this is that while the number of applications remains the same, so the MPO will still have 4 applications, the requirements for submitting all of the documentation on time are going to be much stricter. So we need to make sure that for the projects that we want to move forward, we need to make sure that we have enough lead time to get the projects prepared, which means we're not going to be able to introduce projects that we haven't done any work on at this point. So the projects that are at an appropriate stage of project readiness that the MPO would be eligible to submit are listed here on the screen with a couple of caveats about the pipeline projects. So first of all, we've been talking about a DDI or another alternative at the I-64 and 5th Street interchange. We've already had the conversation with VDOT among this board that there was general interest in studying that intersection and seeing what the preferred alternative will be. So VDOT is already in the process of conducting that analysis. So we do believe that we would be able to prepare that for an application. We had had some discussions with city staff about interest in continuing to evaluate the Hillsdale South extension. What we determined is that while there may still be interest in considering this as an option for a project, there is some additional review that would be needed, and we do not have time to complete that review for this cycle. So this is a project we could keep sort of in the queue for a previous cycle, knowing that there would need to be more lead time to prepare it.
I have a question.
Yes.
So I know this particular item has been around for at least 15, 20 years, but what level is there a written direction anywhere in the hierarchy which says what the localities need to get accomplished before moving something forward? I mean, strictly, this is a right-of-way issue that previous councilors have had to stare down. in the past, so I just wanted to know if there was sort of a plan laid out, so we don't go back into this thing again and then have it fail.
To my still.
Yes.
I mean, I think the technical requirements are indicated in the VDOT process documents and technical manuals. I mean, I don't know, Chuck or Sean, you want to speak to that. In terms of consensus, that's probably not as much of a,
Yeah, I think if a viable project was submitted one time before, but I think, and you're asking it not from a VDOT standpoint of readiness, you're asking from a locality standpoint of readiness to support a project that can move forward.
I mean,
That's
it
what I
seems
hear.
like the locality would need to be all in before asking anybody to do any work on it. That's my concern, is that there's been a lot of wheel spinning in the past.
sure.
That just went away because all of a sudden it was not what people wanted to do. So it's hard to know exactly in advance until you see the designs for sure.
Could I call in for a friend, please?
And I'm not trying to squash anything, I just wanted to know if there was some direction that could be given from somewhere.
Is it okay, Mr. Chambers?
I'll admit first, before I give an answer, I was multitasking, so what exactly do I need?
So the Hillsdale South extension that's mentioned here, how much do you know about it? Do you feel like it's a viable
From what I
piece for
understand
the
right
city
now,
right now, or is it still kind of being kicked around, or?
from what I understand, it is not viable for this round because there are some geometric concerns with the way that the current design of the Hillsdale hydraulic intersection has been changed. So that just sort of changes the design of what we need to do to extend south from there. And that would have some potential impacts on Kroger. So we need to work through what those design changes would be. And then beyond that, it probably would be feasible if we could work through those geometric issues.
And as part of your normal consideration, there you are.
Yes.
You would do environmental also for the wetlands along the creek that are right there.
We would need to,
Okay,
yeah.
great, thank you. One of my constituents had raised that the other day.
But we wouldn't move forward with a project that didn't have consensus from the locality where the project was in. So we would be working to get that.
And part of what Ann is saying is, can the city get off the dime on this?
Well, I don't want
It's
to
so-
get backed into a corner either, when
Yeah.
all of a sudden all this work has been done and then
Yeah.
you have a public fist fight about it. So
Understood, thank you.
it's-
Sure. So the other category that MPOs are eligible to submit projects for are a complete set of corridor projects that have been identified in a planning process that the state has either participated in or led. So that would include the pipeline studies like at Barracks and Ivy, as well as STAR study, or potentially an MPO-initiated project that the state had close engagement with. What this means is that the two pipeline studies that were completed for round 5, which include Peter Jefferson Parkway and Rolcon Road as a set of projects, and the Louisa Road and Milton Road project improvements, both of those sets of projects would be eligible to be submitted in this round, but both of those would have to be grouped together. So instead of submitting those as one application for Peter Jefferson Parkway, one application for Rolcon Road, we would have to submit those together because they came out of one study as the preferred alternative. And then the same thing would apply for US 250 and Barracks Road and Ivy Road, which are the current pipeline projects. So there could be an opportunity where there's one or two improvements that are identified that as a standalone improvement, if it impacts the interchange, the MPO would be eligible to submit. Otherwise, the MPO would only be eligible to submit these projects if it was a combined improvement for all recommendations within the corridor study. There are some concerns about whether or not that Ivy project specifically would be at a point where we would have a complete set of recommendations for that. It's possible there still could be some improvements that are identified for the interchanges directly though. Barracks Road, I think, again, there could be some improvements identified specifically at the interchange. That one, maybe it's a little bit more feasible that that entire set of projects could potentially be identified, but it will be a pretty close deadline.
Can you clarify, you stated Peter Jefferson Parkway and Rolcon would have to be submitted together.
With,
Did you say with Louisa Road, Milton Road?
No, those
You
are,
didn't make any comments on Louisa Road, Milton Road.
no, Louisa Road and Milton Road would have to be submitted as a set together, but those would be two different applications.
Each bullet points its own application.
Yes,
oh, I
yeah,
heard the opposite, sorry, thank you for
Yes.
clarifying that, okay.
yeah. if you want to, we can go through each of these projects a little bit more specifically. But I think looking at these overall, Louisa Road, the combined Louisa Road, Milton Road project did not score very high on smart scale, so it's likely not going to be competitive. But we do have the information, we could move forward with it, but not likely to be competitive. So do you all want to look at these in a little bit more detail?
Is this something you're asking us to decide today, or is this, we start thinking about this?
Or is it, another question to go along with that is when would we need to make a decision about priorities in terms of these various projects?
So the pre-application window opens on March 1st, and pre-applications have to be submitted by April 1st. So I think it's, I think we are hoping to at least have a pretty good sense of what you are willing to support, at least moving forward, recognizing that there aren't firm recommendations in 3 out of 4 of the potential projects. But I think it's helpful to know if you want us to continue to pursue the projects that are identified, but we would probably need to have a firm commitment and understanding of what you want to move us forward to next month.
Someone's trying to get into the meeting. Kevin McDermott.
Oh, sorry.
He's in.
Thank you. Yeah, but we would need to vote next month.
So the information and the details on the projects were in the packet. So is there anybody that wants to go through those details now, knowing we would be taking action officially at the next meeting? I would assume at the next meeting we would go through some of the overviews of it, if not getting down into the details.
I mean, I looked at it, and I feel like the Peter Jefferson Parkway Walking Road improvements, we've seen it a couple of times before, maybe, I think that's right. The Louisa one, I would really defer to y'all in the county, if you felt that was a strong. The Hillsdale one, it seems to me like that's not happening this time, so I think you could take that off. The DDI at 5th Street, I mean, if that's one that you all have, it seems like you've been talking about for a little while, then I would support that. So I don't know, I'm not sure if we would go through them all or not.
I mean, the DDI of that is, I think, the primary, I mean, obviously the left turns they get rid of, but it's backing out onto the highway.
In all directions.
It's a short.
The county feels strongly about that, then yeah.
That's a 64 one. I would think the Peter Jefferson Parkway Rolton Road would take the priority over the other one, just because that was all done and designed with the DDI at 124 as a way to improve that corridor coming into town. I'd have to ask more questions, and maybe that's appropriate to have that ready for the next time as to why the Louisa Road didn't score well, because that's just a 250 corridor that the DDI and all of that links together.
It was cost.
Cost?
It was cost, and I think the most significant points were safety, but they were pretty low. I don't think they had economic development or, well, we can go back and look at the packet.
I mean, the Ivy Road one is, I understood if something's not gonna be completed in time, but that's a big one, getting that figured out, so. But we also have to take the time to do it the proper way to get the right solution, so. If it times out, I mean, that would then be, go just kick to the next round. And US 250 and Barracks Road, that is also backing out onto 250. Traffic backing out onto there is the primary concern. So you do have a safety issue. So I mean, I don't see any of these as me saying, no, it's not. But you can only get, what, 4? And you don't have 4 if you take out the not able to complete. Am I correct? Well, you would, but then you have one that's not compatible. So would you with 3?
Correct, yeah. We would have the DDI, or there could be another alternative at 64 and 5th Street, I think, where the 5th Street corridor study indicated that a DDI was the most likely option. The Peter Jefferson Parkway, Broken Road, US 250 and Barracks Road, and then either Ivy Road, or if there's a portion of that project that the MPO is eligible to submit those. completed in time.
Well, I mean, if I were prioritizing, Ned supervisor would say the DDI and the Peter Jefferson Parkway would be my top two. And then the Ivy Road and US 250 would come into play. Those would be the four I would say, oh, I like those four. And I don't know if you disagree or have a different view, but.
I think all of those impact both jurisdictions very, very clearly every day. So really all depends which, if either of the pipelines have enough to be able to have a really strong application. I think what we really should have as a goal is to make sure that when we submit something, it is top drawer, because we don't want to have a reputation of submitting something as half-baked. Because then people are looking for half-baked next time, and we try to do even better.
Well, that's gonna change a little bit this year too, because we're looking at readiness when it comes in. If it's not ready,
Then goodbye, yeah.
it's
Good.
not happening.
So, I mean, I would put Ivy Road over US 250 Fairbanks Road if it were ready and proper for how things are gonna be accepted.
Doesn't seem like it will be.
But if it's not, then yeah, I don't want it to go in and just turn around and get booted out.
I have a process question. So because we saw the Barracks Road last week, there's 3 major elements in that. So could one submit for one of those elements, or do you have to do the whole set?
The MPO, it depends. The MPO would be eligible to submit anything that impacted, like if it was an interchange improvement, as part of that, we could submit that as a standalone project, or we could submit the entire set of recommendations. We could not submit anything that wasn't an interchange as an individual improvement. I believe that localities could though.
So you're saying like if it's just a bike ped thing under the bridge or something like that in that particular intersection, you could not submit that. It has to impact the above.
Correct, or if it was like one roundabout at one intersection, we could not submit that as an individual project.
As an example, on the Barracks, there's 2 pieces that belong to the interchange, and then there's a 3rd piece that pertains to Georgetown Road. So that's an example.
Well, I mean, it's if you remove Hillsdale and you remove the other that's not likely to be completed, the question is just, do we submit Louisa Road Milton knowing that it may or may not be competitive this go around?
Does that, to Ann's point earlier, Joe, maybe you could help us with this, does that give us, if we are resubmitting something that we already kind of sense will not be competitive, does that hurt our chances in the future, or is like just apply early, apply often?
I think you need to have the competitive versus need. Like, keep that clear. If it's a need, submit it. But just make sure what you're submitting is ready to be submitted and not a half-baked idea.
Got it. So it sounds like based off that, Louisa Road, Milton Road, we should go ahead and, if there's a genuine need there, go ahead and apply.
Yeah, they're not gonna be like, oh, this project again.
So you have the DDI, you have Peter Jefferson, you have Louisa, that's 3. And then maybe we just see what happens with the 2 pipeline projects.
Sure. Maybe we'll kind of keep Louisa and Milton, that project. We'll kind of hold it loosely along with the others and sort that out, but plan to move forward with the DDI or the alternative improvement at the street interchange on the Peter Jefferson Parkway.
And that gives people things to work on for the next month, while we wait for more information. So.
Yeah,
Hey, Sandy,
Yes.
you can put in 5 pre-applications. And then if you choose, and then at full application, you can just submit 4. So if you wanted to put in the Louisa Road, North Milton Road, you could set that one up to go in also. And then if you've got something out of the other 2 applications, you could drop it.
So we could plan to move forward with that.
That sounds good.
Okay. Thank you, Chuck.
Any other questions there? Do you need anything else there, Sandy?
Nope, we're good.
All right, that will take us to number 9, and the US 29 and Fontaine Avenue Interchange Improvements Project discussion. I suspect this will take up the meat of the meeting.
I'll do a brief introduction and then I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Nelson to go through the operations analysis. But wanted to just sort of orient you all to where we are right now. In round 4, the MPO had applied for a project to do some improvements that were at Fontaine, but were also intended to resolve the left turn movement coming up 29 northbound, taking a left exit to get onto I-64. So it was creating a situation where a large volume of vehicles had to turn against oncoming traffic to get onto the interstate. And so the MPO had actually been working on this with VDOT and Albemarle County for a number of years. I think there was an application and round 1 or 2 to rebuild a bridge that was a $170+ million project. And then in round 3, we had applied for a diverging diamond interchange. And that project was not funded based on the cost. It was just not competitive for funding.
That interchange, the DDI interchange would have been at Fontaine?
Would have been at Fontaine.
Not at I-64.
Right, so the goal was to basically use the Fontaine interchange in order to move the traffic, in order to reorient the traffic that was making that left turn to basically be able to facilitate that movement through the Fontaine interchange. So Mr. Nelson is going to go through the operational aspects of that project. But the reason that we are talking about this today is because in round 4, in order to create a competitive application, get funding to resolve this issue, we had made some adjustments to the scope of the project. So instead of submitting the DDI, we submitted an application for a displaced left turn. And there was some concern or reservations, even though there was ultimately support to go ahead and submit the application. So prior to moving forward with since the project was funded, prior to moving forward with going out to bid for the design build for the project, there was an effort and there was an opportunity for VDOT to go back and see what can we do with the funding that's been committed through this project, to see if there are any alternatives for other things we could do to make some improvements in this area. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. This project has already been funded. We're talking about what design alternatives may be available that could be moved forward within the funding and within the scope of what was approved through Smart Scale. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Nelson.
All right, thanks, Sandy. So I've got I think I'm gonna try to run through this fairly quickly because it should be, I sent you all some information previously. We've had some additional development since then, so I'm just gonna try to walk through this. Let's see if we can get the slides to advance. There we go. All right, so as Sandy indicated, there was a DDI application that was submitted. So this is the graphic of that DDI application. As you can see, the trucks that, because this also included the closing of the crossover, would come up and have a dedicated lane to go back southbound on 29 to get back to 64. This project did not score very well. A whole lot of the issues with the estimate and why it cost so much is the large footprint of a project. This kind of blows up the entire interchange right there at Fontaine. You've got to do work on either ramp, on all 4 corners of this ramp. There's multiple stormwater management ponds that have to be facilitated, and there's substantial earthwork. So when we went back and looked at this estimate in 2020, we're looking at $28 million, which is a substantial size project. So round 4, we came back with this displaced left, which is kind of like partial DDI, but not as sexy. So in this situation, the trucks from 29 north would come up, again, have a dedicated lane to come back around to go back 29 southbound. But what that did was it restricted movements here at the northbound ramp. So no one coming off the ramp could make a left anymore. And vehicles that were coming on, going eastbound on Fontaine would not be able to make a left to go north on 29. So everyone would have to come straight through and make this U-turn movement here, just on the west side of Race and Hunt, to come back to go 29. So this is the current design, and those are some of the concerns that we've heard from various stakeholders, is that the loon is not attractive to have vehicles have to come through and make a U-turn here at this intersection. And also some of the commingling of the traffic from 29 that wants to go westbound on 64 to have to come up Fontaine to go back south on 29 to get back to the ramp.
But, I'm sorry to interrupt, Sean, to be clear, the trucks.
Anyone who wants to go westbound on 64 from 29 would have to come to Fontaine.
Right, but they would just go up and take the bridge around and come back down.
Correct.
The loon, which is a very interesting name for that, the loon is for really more local traffic, I guess, that gets stuck almost and hasn't.
Or just quite frankly, anyone that is coming eastbound on Fontaine that wants to go 29 north.
Got it.
Because you can't, we've got a median there, you can't get over.
Got it.
To go northbound. So that was a concern with that.
Sorry, where are these trucks originating?
29,
Coming north from Lynchburg.
And trying to get off onto 64?
trying to go 64 westbound.
Gotcha,
Because right now, it's just a median break
right.
with
It's that
Yeah.
lower right hand
no.
Yeah.
So, yeah, literally right here. This is the movement we're talking about, that we would remove by having a median put in here and route that traffic further north to come back in. So the question everybody asks is, why not just put a signal there? Because putting a signal there could be problematic based on the volumes of traffic coming southbound on 29. You put a signal there, you've got to stop traffic to allow those trucks, and I think you all know in the afternoons, traffic coming southbound is fairly heavy. It's probably going to be back up well past 29, Fontaine. So we have not evaluated putting a signal there, as we already have a funded project that does not require us putting a signal on 29.
You have a funded project that is kind of a strange one.
I mean, isn't there already a signal?
Not there.
There's one on further east.
Below 64.
Like,
Further
yeah, so you're
south.
coming
Yeah.
up 29 to
64.
go 64 east.
Yep.
There's a signal.
Mhm.
So since we have quick questions here, so what you just said about we can't put a signal up because of the volume of southbound traffic, but that's the reason the trucks can't cross. And the southbound traffic's going 55 and never stops or slows down unless they happen to be turning left at the new point. So I will still maintain my plug for the second.
Duly.
And you think it makes more sense to just put a traffic light in?
Well, it's one option that I hope somebody will evaluate to make sure that it's not
And
the
that's a
$200,000 solution versus the $20,000.
But that's a great conversation of how that corridor functions as a whole, because you can't look at this as just one signal here. You have to look at the entire corridor of 29 to figure out what needs to happen with that corridor, and right now, we have not done it.
Okay.
So. Small scale
Sorry,
school,
one more question.
go ahead.
Apologies if this has been gone over before. Why don't we want to do anything else with this? Like any other cloverleaf situations and keep it all down here instead of taking it up to?
So, good question. You're kind of restricted right now by the bridges that you have, because you go underneath the 64, so you're kind of restricted there. I know Mr. Condor had mentioned something also, but that also requires bridges to get over top of 64 and flyovers to kind of go over top and then back down, which are very expensive projects. We can look at those, but it's not a $12.3 million project. That make sense?
Yeah, I drive this to and from work every day, but I'm just going south and then coming back into town, so I never go the other way. And I want to pay more attention next time.
I mean, I think, and our staff has looked at, can we squeeze some lanes underneath of the bridges to get another lane to try to, almost trying to do a DDI where you're gonna have traffic on the opposite side of the road to get back around? Yeah, it's just very difficult under those bridges. I don't even know how you would construct it with the slope protection you've got there to even do that. So we're really constrained here by this old interchange as it is.
And how big of a problem is it? Like, is it some, like a handful of noisy truck drivers who are upset, or is it like an actual problem
So
for lots and lots and lots of people?
I think it's a larger problem considering no one wants the trucks on local roads, right? So you don't want a truck traveling down a secondary road to get to an easier accessible point to 64, let's say further up the mountain. So you've got through truck restrictions that are limiting trucks from traveling. So they've only got one access point, and it's very difficult for them to get across that median in time during the peak because you've got traffic, as Ann indicated, traveling 55, 60 miles an hour going southbound, heading towards Lynchburg. So we've had some accidents, and most of the accidents have been because the trucks can't clear the interchange, the crossover in time, and vehicles are clipping them. They're clipping them in the back. So we've had some fairly significant accidents there.
And has there been any discussion, I asked Sandy this earlier this week, about a roundabout at Fontaine, but has there been a discussion about a big roundabout at this intersection?
A big roundabout, well, no,
At
there's
60.
been no discussion about a big roundabout at 29 at the ramps, no. As far as at this on Fontaine, it kind of goes back to the point I was making with this. A roundabout would be a fairly large footprint, which would have cost implications with that too. So I think we've looked at it, and if we scroll through, there was a slide that I think I deleted that had talked about some of the cost considerations that we had with the project. A roundabout, I think, could potentially be cost prohibitive, considering the amount of money we've already got.
But it hasn't been considered at the 29, or at the
No,
64.
roundabout has not been considered on 29.
Is this sort of notion or concept of basically we're saying deferring the turn lane in a way of going one direction, only the U-turn to come back around to be able to eliminate or delete the left turn. Is this something that is common or has been done in the region? It seems like a lot of effort. Maybe it is, safety and, crashes and all those things. That's the reason we're here. So I'm not willing to minimize that. But this is really kind of a pretty significant project to address, a simple left turn lane. I realize it's not simple. Nothing in this is simple, but I'm just trying to get a sense with this sort of, we call it go around your elbow to get to your thumb kind of approach. Is this something you've seen in other places in the state? I mean, is this kind of a common, I wouldn't say common, but is it?
Have you done it before?
Yeah.
17 and 29.
Yeah, I think and quite frankly, it's an economical solution to a problem. I mean, that's what it is.
Okay.
But at Route 17, they have an enormous loop. So you can no longer go across at the light and go straight toward 28.
Yeah.
But you have to then were able to wrangle the money to put in a huge loop there.
Yeah. So the other element of it is when you have a stopped truck, then turns left to get up on 64, since they are at a stopped position going with that slope, the other safety issue is all the traffic heading west on 64 already, and now you've got very slow-moving trucks trying to merge in, which is where you see safety issues there.
I see.
And to add the truck lane up the right all the way up that mountain was not feasible when we did that cost estimate, so the truck lane got dismissed or boxed out because of cost. Because if you ran the truck lane all the way up there, then you at least give the trucks room to try to get up the mountain without all the people going to, west of that interchange who are doing their own bit of speeding and traveling. and not necessarily allowing people to merge. So
Yeah,
the
Sean,
reason
I
I
didn't-
liked the loop around was it gave the trucks the momentum to get going up the exit ramp.
No, I see
So
that.
they're moving up at a different speed than from a stopped position.
This is a creative solution to a very challenging problem.
That's what we do.
I'm so sorry, I have one more question. So I'm just looking at it, and there's 3 of the clovers and just not the 4th one would be the one that would solve this issue.
You mean the one we removed?
Yeah.
No, they never built it back in the 60s, unfortunately. That was the problem.
Yeah, you turned it away, I couldn't see it.
This one, so here's Racing Hunt and all of that. So
Yeah,
these
they
trucks
turned
having to
it
do
away.
in there instead of doing that.
Yeah.
And so there was one and it was removed, or was that, that's the southwestern one?
This was the original complaint from people who lived here 40, 50 years ago, was why didn't they do it right?
I think it would behoove us to get through this, because we're trying to solve it on like the first 3
Very
slides.
good, very good.
Go ahead.
And so, sorry, was that a consideration, or why can't there? Is it
No,
just
we have
because that's
not, we have
UVA
not
land?
considered putting a loop in the interchange that I'm aware of. Chuck,
Because,
have you've got institutional knowledge of this. Has there been a loop consideration of modifying the interchange to add a loop?
on that northeast
No,
corner?
I mean, the impacts, there's a creek and the railroad tracks just east of the interchange that would be possibly be impacted. Plus the back of the Fontaine Research Park is in that area too. So there's a lot of stuff going on right there that would be impacted by doing another loop. We did not even consider that. The first round project did look at converting the 118 interchange to a divergent diamond, but we grade separated the crossover movements, so it was basically a free flow interchange. And that would have solved the problems. We just couldn't fund it. So the reason, and then after that, what we did is we broke up and looked at the individual issues at the interchange, and we've basically put in and got funded projects to address all of the individual issues except for this left turn. And that's the DDI that we originally planned for. This was the way to solve that in an economical stance. And it would also address the issues that we're having at that interchange now between the interchange and the research park. It's significant. So it's a way to address a multitude of issues with one project. So that's how we got where we're at. We just trying to get it funded, and the current funding mechanisms that we have available has been difficult.
I know you've got a slideshow you want to take us through, so sorry to.
No, this is good, healthy conversation. All right, so this just kind of illustrates, and this is from Sandy's information that she had provided you all, how this project scored out. A majority of the points are in land use. The good thing about that is if we make changes to the original application, it likely doesn't affect anything, because the project is still where the project is at. And as long as we keep the shared use path there, I don't think we'll have any issue modifying the scope of the project. So that is a good thing if we've got concerns with the original project. Over the last couple of months, I've kind of articulated what some of the concerns that stakeholders have had. We talked about the loon here, the desire to maintain all movements at this intersection here and not restrict the ability to go westbound on Fontaine. But we do have some restrictions here, and mainly one of them is the width underneath this bridge.
Say that again.
The width underneath the bridge, we've only got so much room to operate in. We can't grow any more real estate without potentially having to rebuild the bridge, which would be a costly endeavor. So Sandy kind of indicated this is some of the direction that we were looking at to get from this board, and that was to move forward the existing project in scope, potentially pull the project, or pursue one of the conventional intersection configuration, which I'm going to kind of go through here in this presentation. but it wouldn't be addressing the left turn movements at the interchange. But I think we may have a way to get past that too, so I will leave that until then. So we hired Michael Baker and Associates to kind of take on this endeavor from us about 6 months ago now. And they were given directions that they need to look at the engineering and lane alignments and the operations at both the interchange and Ray Hunt Drive, and make sure that any solution they provided us could be done within the estimate that we've got, the same footprint, but it has to keep the shared use path. The one thing that they were able to take off the table was the movements there at the interchange. So we told them, for the purpose of this exercise, assume that the crossover remains open. So you're not diverting those trips to Fontaine, because we've heard that was an issue. So this is the slide I was talking about. When they looked at some of these alternatives, they looked at roundabouts, the DDI, the displaced left turn, which we already have, a continuous green T, and a conventional intersection. And these were some of the things that came up when they looked at those. So with the conventional intersections, what I'm going to go through is what we have gotten feedback from with the consultants. So when we looked at the alternatives development, we realized that there were some critical moves in the morning and the afternoon that we need to pay attention to. These are those movements. So coming 29 southbound to go eastbound on Fontaine was a critical movement. The vehicles in the morning that are coming, going 29 north and going down Fontaine was a critical movement. And then you've got all the movement here at going into the research park. And the PM is just the opposite. So we wanted to make sure that we were trying to address these critical movements during the AM and PM on this corridor. One thing we did find out was that we had enough room underneath the bridge to have a 10-foot shared use path. So they were able to determine that up front. We don't have much room after this, but we're able to have 4 lanes and a 10-foot shared use path underneath the bridge, which is a good thing. So and these sketches are not full engineered, nice, pretty planning sketches. These sketches were done by traffic engineers, and this is really based on their synchro models and trying to determine how the traffic will work. So we're working on getting some pretty graphics, but you'll have to do with these for now. So some of the lane assignments and the way the lanes look may be kind of weird, but this is kind of the base concept. So on this concept, as you know, we're maintaining all the movements at this intersection. So as you're coming northbound on 29 and get off on Fontaine, you're able to make the left, go straight across, and you still have the right bound, the eastbound movements on Fontaine. You've got 2 through lanes westbound, which is good. Coming off of 29 southbound to Fontaine, you've got 1 lane that will accommodate all the movements. You've got dual lefts to go back 29 southbound. So this was the base of what they were starting with. It should be noted that this farmost right lane in these proposals is going to kind of be a free flow, somewhat free flow right going into Ray Hunt, which would actually be delineated by either some type of physical barrier or those post-mounted barriers to keep the vehicles from doing a merge. So when you're going to have to make a decision when you get off on 29, if you want to go to Ray Hunt, you have to be in that far right lane.
It's kind of already like that, right?
Yeah. So here's what it would look like at Ray Hunt. As you can see, there is no loom required with this option because we're accommodating all the movements at the interchange itself. So we're not asking people to make a U-turn to go back westbound on Fontaine to go north. So that is removed. Any questions on this base concept? No.
So do I understand, I hope, unhappily, that there is now, would be proposed to be a light at the west end? This is where the
Yes.
exit ramp off of 29. The
Yes.
reason that backs up is because people can't overcome the through traffic. So that would be a huge problem solver if that could
Yes.
part.
That is the plan. So I will note that this is based on them using a Synchro. They have now gone through, and I just got an update on Tuesday, that they're using Vissim now, and we've been coordinating with the university and their consultants on the projected traffic they've got for Racing Hunt Drive and the research park that they're putting back there. The numbers that they're seeing regarding these queues are getting better with the model that they're using. So this is a worst case scenario, and we've got updated information that we hope to have by the middle of next month that will be able to provide a better idea of what the queues potentially would be. But what this is showing in the AM of the amount of storage we have on these legs with the queue at the busiest time, busiest hour would be. So coming off the ramp, it's a very limited queue here of 170 feet of 900 feet. Coming southbound to get off, you're using 1,330 feet of the 2,100. So you still got some room there for capacity. Everything else looks fairly good. We are constrained in all models. Basically, anything coming westbound on Fontaine, and because we've got this gap that's between this project and the city streetscape project where there is no improvement. So that is going to be a bottleneck in all scenarios until that's fixed. Yes.
So this is queue analysis for the alternative development. Do we know do you have numbers of what it is currently?
For the current configuration or for the proposed displaced left?
For the current configuration, is there a queue problem at this intersection currently?
It is, but I don't have that information.
Okay, and then I guess the exceeds 250 feet for the westbound Racy Hunt of it all assumes everyone is commuting in a car.
Yes, this is all based on vehicular, yes.
Right.
So this is for the PM, as you can see.
I wonder this notion of an endless queue could just be really exciting or really horrible.
It's pretty bad. But I mean, I think we all know if you've got a choke point in the middle of those two projects where you've only got one lane in each direction.
Eventually, this too shall pass, I guess.
Yes.
Endless queue.
But I mean, it's just to let you know that there is going to continue to be a problem going in the westbound direction because it's a capacity issue.
Our project in the city is not adding capacity, so I'm not sure how this section is following.
You're right, it's not adding capacity, but don't you need some capacity?
No, we don't.
Okay.
One lane is enough.
One lane's enough then. But you got one lane feeding into two lanes, and they can't get through effectively enough. So that's why we got the endless queue there. Okay. The next was an upgrade to the base concept, which helps operations immensely, because in the westbound direction, now that we have closed this off and restricted the lefts coming off of 29 northbound to Fontaine, you're able to have a free flow in the westbound direction. So traffic coming out of the city, going westbound, literally you have the light at Racing Hunt, but from there moving forward, you're just moving and trying to get to 64 or to 29 southbound. So there would be no light stopping this traffic in the westbound direction. That light is only for the traffic coming off of the ramp. So, but the issue with this is we limit the movements here, which means anybody wanting to go west on Fontaine from the north has to go through Luna. So that's the only way to accommodate any vehicles. If you're restricting movements going westbound on Fontaine from 29 north, the only way to get them back to go eastbound is to have a U-turn. And the only way to accommodate that U-turn would be a roundabout or the loop.
Can you go back a slide, please? So why is this an upgrade to the base concept?
operationally wise, it's an upgrade because you're gonna be able to allow this traffic to move freely through the interchange.
But the downside is you've got to have this limit.
Yes,
That seems like a far worse sort of,
depends on what if you're thinking operations wise, this is a better alternative.
interesting.
For maximum number of vehicles to get through.
Yeah, I mean, when we look at the queues, you're gonna see that the queues go down because you're able to move the traffic in the westbound direction.
Interesting.
So it's a balance, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, can you go back to the continuous loop one?
The displaced left?
Yes, thanks. I'll get the link out. Wait, this might be too far.
The one that's currently funded?
This is the one that's currently funded.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking. Is that what you want? When you say displaced left, you mean the one that's currently funding? Takes away
It's
the
the one
left
where
turn.
if the truck is trying to turn, they just go around continuously. Is that what that is?
This has.
It's one version
that
of that.
aspect of it. That's not the DDI though.
So why couldn't we do the DDI? It just costs too much money?
Yes, that's where.
You don't have
That's
funding,
right.
you don't have funding currently for a DDI. You did not submit an application for a DDI.
I see.
And what, okay, so, sorry, I'm looking at this more closely now with the intersection based on what we just saw. And there couldn't be a way for the trucks to do a continuous inner loop that is separated from the eastbound traffic and the westbound traffic on Fontaine, so that the Fontaine traffic is separate from the loop traffic and they meet back up on the on-ramp back onto 64.
It's the bridge issue.
Yeah, because like I said, remember, we only got as much room under that bridge.
And so that would make the eastbound traffic one lane. Wait, under the bridge?
Yeah.
Yeah, it goes,
Yeah,
it's hard to tell because of the way this is drawn, because it looks like it's going over.
we're under the bridge, like
Under the bridge.
we're under,
29.
We
we're
are
under
the bridge.
29.
Yeah, no, I see what you mean, I see what you mean.
But eastbound traffic, westbound traffic is only in one direction here because it crosses over. Eastbound, if you're going westbound, you cross over and you're on the wrong side of the road, essentially. And that's what the displaced left is.
Right, but couldn't they stay on the normal right side, make a left turn at the ramp to get onto the ramp, to get onto 29, and I might need to doodle this. Forgive my art.
And then also, I believe Chuck is putting comments, so I don't know if you guys are following the comments. Is that intended for like him to say out loud or just to you all?
No, that was to Sean.
Got it. I'm sure up there. Sorry.
Secret bra.
I just want to make sure if he needed to make a comment that we recognize that he was trying to make a comment.
Chuck, just chime in.
One of the things, let's see if I'm muted, is that the eastbound queue, because all the traffic from the northbound ramp and all the traffic from the southbound ramp has to line up in that one lane to go through the signal at Ray Hunt. And in the past, that has been an issue. And what happens is a lot of the traffic going northbound at the off-ramp would basically just go over into that lane and cut the people from the southbound ramp off. And that's been an issue since I've been working in this area. I went out there when I was at the residency and used to watch that movement. And there's almost been crashes out there every day for that particular movement in the morning. So that is a concern, and that length is really short. Once you start looking at the volumes of traffic that needs to go into the city. This scenario that we're looking at is that's still an issue, but it's not as bad because with the, by separating out the one lane that's going into the university property, then there's not, you're minimizing the weave that's having to occur between the southbound ramp and the northbound ramp, trying to go into the city. If you guys understand what I'm trying to say.
Do you want to share your
So my
sketch?
doodle is trash, but if you can hold that there, I can kind of indicate on it what I'm trying to ask. I got the doodle. Okay, so here's the on-ramp into town. These people are doing fine, they're cruising. Here's the free flow this way, they're fine, they're cruising, and then here's a light that they're gonna use to turn onto the on-ramp here. There's not tons of traffic, I'm assuming, coming across this way, right?
Correct.
So here's 2 lanes.
Now, yeah.
Right, but here's 2 lanes. So we have 1 lane, normal, regular incoming traffic, then we have the second lane be the loop around.
You still, yes, you could do that, you're still gonna have a loom. How do you get, it's okay if you're going back to 64 to 29 southbound, but how do you accommodate people wanting to go eastbound on Fontana?
Well, I'm assuming those are gonna be trucks. So you wouldn't need the huge turnaround point for a truck.
Well, you can assume that, but I can't say that no trucks are ever gonna go eastbound on Fontana.
And the truck is the
Deliveries
traffic
and-
circle that UVA is building in the city park.
Wait.
Start with the traffic light.
And then,
I think you'd also have a hard time doing that and maintaining the shared use path. You have another median in there and it's gonna get real tight real quick like. So your width under the bridge is gonna be somewhat limited, but I appreciate the idea that you're basically having sort of one
Take
traffic
one of
and
the
you're trying to
incoming
use one of those
roads.
lanes for the return,
Yeah.
deal with that return solution, but gonna add another median, you're really pretty constrained the bridge piers.
what is the width there?
There's a drawing for it in one of these things here.
Because we're getting the lane, I think we're trying to use 11-foot lanes, there it is, right there. So you've got 10, 44, 48 feet.
Of built, but is that what's actually the constraint?
Yeah, I mean, you're constrained because if you're under, there's bridge piers that are literally right there that are structurally holding the bridge up.
Okay.
So you get into an issue, you've got to protect those piers because you can't have traffic driving down and running head on.
Yeah. Okay.
Could I ask what feedback you've got from the university, or if you want to just tell us, I know y'all had conversations, how does the university feel about all this? I think you all are
Well,
important players
do
in
you
all this.
mean, how do we feel about the displaced left turn, or how do we feel about the current proposal that Sean's talking about today? Because those are two
I guess
different.
both, yeah, I'd be interested in sort of the thought process that.
Well, the concern with the displaced left turn was articulated very well in Sandy's document, but in summary, I would say that there's 3 primary concerns that we have. One is that there's a concern with taking statewide traffic that's at 64 and 29 and displacing one of those movements to a local intersection. That's a concern. A second concern is that they're recalculating the model now, but it didn't include all of the developments that are occurring. For instance, there's the Regent School that's being built west of this intersection off of Fontaine, etc. Yeah. And that's going to be a very big school activity with students and vehicles. And so that's just one example. There's also the Affordable Housing Initiative at Piedmont, which is just
Sure.
to the east of here. So for instance, all the improvements that the city's doing with their smart scale project would be impacted by the additional movements, and we're concerned about how this would work with that loom in the middle of all these activities. And then thirdly, with the additional development occurring in the research park, we were also concerned with how the loom would impact people trying to access or exit from it.
But, and you've just, I guess, only recently tonight or maybe a little bit prior to seeing this new concept, you probably need some more time to think about a response to it?
So we made public comment in 2020 when the displaced left turn, as did the city at that time. And then in the current conversation, we're hopeful that some of the technical problems that Sean hasn't totally gotten to in his presentation yet can get solved so that it becomes a win-win for everyone.
But this upgraded concept that he's calling it in general, which looks like adding some traffic lights to the untrained eye, and there's more going on there, but that's sort of the key thing that's making this work, right? Are these traffic signals you're adding?
Yeah, I mean, it's using a conventional intersections as opposed to an alternate intersection with the displaced light.
So you're really only sort of just now being able to engage with this, is that true?
We saw it for the first time in November of this year, and then there's some additional work being done on it at this time that Sean's going to present some of that today.
Okay, all right.
We think it's moving in the right direction.
Good, that's all I need to hear.
All right, so I'm gonna skip some of these slides because you all can see the operations on the upgraded concept get better based on the queues. The queues are smaller, it's a win-win for operations for the corridor. The ultimate concept, I'm not even gonna go through. I'm gonna go to the base concept plus, because I think this is where the conversation will coalesce together. So, as you can see with this base concept, the first concept only had one lane coming off of southbound 29 to Fontaine. And this upgraded, this base concept plus, you've got two lanes now. You've got a shared lane that accommodates all movements, and you've got a dedicated left turn lane. So this is a vast improvement to help flush some of that queue off of the ramp and not backing up to 29. You've got two lanes that are coming through. We're accommodating the lefts to go back, to go northbound on 29. Here, this ramp, we're also allowing all movement. So this leg of the intersection here would accommodate all movements. It'd be a right turn, a through, and also a left. So that is a vast improvement from the other concept. So what that means is it does not require a loom because nobody has to make a U-turn.
And Sean, just to confirm, it also has got the shared use path still on the bridge?
That is the one thing that we were not removing from the project, because if you remove the shared use path, you might as well just throw the project away.
Thank you for clarifying that. Okay.
And Racing Hunt looks like it looks today, essentially. There's no real main changes there. We would make some changes to how the light operates as far as pedestrian calls and whatnot, but there was pretty much the same intersection. This is showing a graphic of those queues, but it does not include the last one I showed because we did not model that at the time we went through this. So we're working through that now. But to your point, Councilor Pinkston, you were talking about the upgraded. As you can see, the blue arrows is where the queues are at, and you can see where that is based on the base concept, which is the pink one, and then the displaced left. I think it's kind of interesting to see where the queues at along the corridor with all these options together. And this is for the AM, and then we've got a graph showing it for the PM. So operationally, this kind of lets you know what you would expect for backups based on those options. And we're going to do the same thing for the new alternative that we've come up with. So, direction needed. I added a star because what I've asked the team to do, since the VISM model that they're using now is showing better operations, I've asked them to now go back and introduce what it looks like, keep closing the median at the interchange, to see what operations look like with that feature back added. So essentially, if we close the median, and if this was the concept that the MPO wanted to explore further, you close the median, trucks would have to come up here to this light, wait at the light, make the left, come back around and go down. Which, if we close the median today, they would have to do that.
Do they have the space to do that?
That's what we're working on. Yeah, I think in conversation, we probably have to make sure we can trim back the nose of that median to make sure the trucks can make the turn.
And the shared use path is down the middle,
Shared use path is down here.
down here.
Yeah, it is on the south side of.
Perfect, that's what I was thinking about, that left turn.
Yeah.
Thank you.
To ask a stupid question, the interchange at I-64, the one that we're trying to fix, basically all of that pavement, everything going up from that direction is gonna be gone. Cars can't use it, and trucks, we don't want trucks to use it. Cars as well are gonna have to take this loop.
Everybody, yep.
And there's nothing really stopping people from doing this exact thing right now.
Nothing at all.
There's no city.
Yes, there's no second, yeah. I mean, as a part of this too, I've added some of the multiple concepts. If you all are interested of the things that we looked at to come up with this, there's probably like 15, 20 of them. And this was done back in 2020. So we've looked at this a lot.
Yes. Can I ask a question, John?
Go ahead.
So, has this been, any of these options been cost estimated again? Is there any assurance that $2020 are going to fund anything in 2025?
No, there's no assurances. So the consultant has been asked as part of their proposal to develop concepts, but by staying within the same footprint of the existing project that we've got, we're hoping to not be escalated more than inflation. We're trying to stay within the same.
Inflation is part of it.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
That's the question.
Since all of what you just said, would this project then be eligible for the cost overrun money that the legislature put, the $200 million that was in the current year's budget for small-scale projects that end up costing a little more?
We will take each project case by case.
Okay, so that's a maybe.
That's amazing. It depends on what the estimate increase is. But every project is looked at case by case, and if it's over a certain threshold, we have to go back to the CTB to ask for additional funds.
Okay.
Thank you so much for this. It's very helpful. So the VISM model is also looking at the new development of the region school, as well as the information you have from our traffic engineers.
And it's also looking at adding in the traffic from the property that was being developed south of the interchange, the C property.
Excellent. Thank you.
I'm looking at Street View here, and it's hard to tell, but what's the height of Fontaine to underneath the 64 bridge? Is that
29 bridge?
29 bridge, sorry, yeah. Is that a concern for trucks?
If it's not posted right now, it shouldn't be, no.
It's hard to tell.
Trucks have to be on Fontaine Extended now anyway. They have to get off and go up to Fontaine Extended.
Well, Sean, I, for one, appreciate all the work that's gone into this. When I first looked at it, I was like, holy smokes, a win. You know, clearly you guys have really done a lot of work to try to make this.
We're trying to thread a needle.
Yeah. Figure it out.
Could you break that joke?
So what do y'all need from us now?
I'm behind you, share gallery.
I'm Jody Filardo from Albemarle County Community Development, and I just wanted to acknowledge all the work that Sean and his team have done with all of us, both the county, the city, and UVA, to try to come up with this 50-choice solution or whatever this thing is. We've had many hours of conversations about this, and I just wanted to acknowledge him and his team and the whole region's worth of team members, because I think we've all hung in there trying to find the right answer. And so I just wanted to say thank you to the policy board as well for letting us go down this road and kind of support Sean and his efforts. Yeah, thank you, Julia. That's why we're a good team. But thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Jody. All right, so it's decision time. We have to tell you what we prefer at this point.
I don't know if we need that right now, because I've got more information to provide you all. I think it's gonna come a point, because we're planning on delivering this Fontaine project through a design build procurement, which we need to know by this spring what we're going to try to build. By mid-February, I should have a good idea operation-wise how these options pan out with the closure of the median at the interchange and without. I think based on how that goes is where I'm gonna need this board to tell me, are we gonna move forward with the original project or revised project? And does that revised project contain traffic from the interchange or not?
Meaning the closure of the meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the analysis that we're doing will let us know how that, I mean, and based on the number that I'm seeing from the TIA that C provided, I don't think operation is going to be a big issue, but don't hold me to it. I just don't think it's going to cause an issue.
What is not going to be an issue? The trucks
I don't
going
think,
around?
I don't think it's going to be an issue.
Okay.
Well, and I think having a little more time to just kind of digest it. I've looked through all these things, but it takes me a little while anyway to just sort of let it sit and marinate.
Can I ask Sandy to say one other thing just to make sure everybody understands of the options that exist? Leaving it the way it was funded, the way it is the status quo, that everybody knows that's exactly what would happen. If there were a change to the design of the scope, then that would need to be rescored under the rules that it was originally scored under, not the changes that the CTV just recently made. I'm now doing the summary I asked you to do. I feel like I've heard this so many times, I'm starting to get it. If for some reason none of these options feel like the right option and we're saying we would rather not do any of them than do one that we don't love, the option would be to not receive the funding, go back to the drawing board, reapply for the project under the new CTV rules for smart scale, and knowing that some of the things that got it funded in the first place would then make it not competitive potentially the next time around. So I just want to make sure that that all has been summarized, that there's a lot of different options in here, but there's like procedures for each of those in order to make them happen.
And you would already have traffic counts at all these various things, because I mean, in many drivings through this, the most I've ever seen is 15 trucks in the northbound lane trying to go west. But that was just one little snapshot, and I don't know how long every day
So
that kind of thing happens, but you probably.
in 2018, the AM, it was 28, and in the PM, it was 23.
Okay.
So projected in 2036, you're looking at 74 and 100.
You said that was 2018 when the first one?
Yeah.
But was that before or after all the through truck restrictions got put in?
That I'm not sure.
I think that was before.
Probably was. So, I mean, the more, and that's a part of this, right? You restrict those routes, the trucks have no other viable way to go.
Well, it keeps them on the road that it's designed for,
Agreed.
which is really important.
And they likely aren't using, they're likely using those secondary roads because they don't like making the left currently.
Yeah,
So if we
because
can
that's a
improve
long
that.
thing to get across.
Yeah.
It really is. Thank you for all this hard work, man.
All right, thank you, Sean.
So what happens, Ned, does this come back to us in a month?
Yep. And that's when it's decision time.
I don't know if it's going to the city or not.
But Sean's coming to the county board, I know that, so we'll get the latest, whatever it is.
Does Sean know he's coming to the county?
I didn't know it was coming, no, I didn't know. No. Somebody's gonna go to the county, but I'm not.
Your staff will come.
Jody said, yeah. Why are you on the There will be updated stuff. Yes. Got it. Thank you very much. I was using the wrong message.
Sean, you are
Sorry.
of course invited to come in.
I'll send Karen, she'll be there.
Very good.
All right, any other items or questions, comments on this one? So we can go to item 10, which is the Transportation Improvement Program amendments and modifications. Sandy?
Yep, so the Transportation Improvement Program, if you recall, is the document that basically approves the spending or allocation or planned expenditures of federal dollars within the urbanized areas. So any change to the document that is adopted over a certain amount is required to go through an amendment, which requires approval from the policy board. And then any adjustments that are for lesser amounts are administrative modifications. It doesn't require any action from the policy board, but they are included in your agenda packet as an informational item. So we have several amendments that I'll go through briefly, and then we will be asking you all to take action. The MPO technical committee did recommend approval of the amendments as presented. All of these are related to transit projects. So the first one is that for a change in the scheduled spending for replacement rolling stock for CAT. The amount of allocation that was identified in FY24 was higher than what was initially identified. And so the amount has been adjusted to reflect the allocations for FY24 and then have been, and then the amounts for FY27 have also been added. And then the amounts between FY25 and FY26 have been adjusted based on the funding change that has been identified for FY24. Any questions on that one? Okay. The next amendment is to add a new project for CAT, and this is for a capital project that includes two phases. First of all, there will be there's some planned additions to the operations annex to accommodate some additional bays, including bays and other infrastructure for alternative fuel vehicles. And then the second improvement is for some expansions to the administrative offices, which include the addition of training facilities. The schedule of expenditures that I was given included spending FY24 to complete sort of the site planning work and the design work. And then there would be a period of review with the renovations to start in FY26, FY27. We may have to come back and amend this, but this was the best information that we had for right now. The third amendment, I'm sorry, any questions on that one?
Very general question. So this is out of a transit bucket.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's just moving from pushed around, but in the same transit bucket that it started out with. It's not taking something from someplace.
I don't think that this is moving it around. This is 5339. I think this is new funding. But it's not taking it from somewhere else.
Okay. DRPT side, okay.
Yeah. If anybody on DRPT wants to correct me, feel free to jump in. The fourth amendment is actually one for the TJPDC. As you all recall, Lucinda has been working very hard to get a mobility management program developed for the region. So January 1st, we officially launched the call center to support ride referral services for individuals with disabilities and seniors. But because we are now direct recipients of this federal funding, we needed to add it to the tip. So this is reflecting the expenditures or the funding that was allocated for FY24. We'll have to go back and amend this when we know what our budget is for FY25 moving forward. Any questions on this one? Okay. And then amendments number 5 through 11 are basically just removing all the tick boxes related to jaunt. So since FY 2015 at least, we have included jaunt into our MPO's transportation improvement program, and we recently realized that jaunt is not a direct recipient of federal funding. They are a sub-recipient from the state. And so it is actually duplicative for us to include jaunt in our TIP, since they are also included under the state scheduled funding applications. So just to clean this up and remove those duplications, the amendments will remove all the references to jaunt's planned funding allocations. Those will be captured in the statewide documents, and we will no longer maintain those changes in the schedule. So those are the amendments that are being requested tonight, and I'll turn it over to you all to take action or ask any further questions.
Any questions? All right, is there a motion to approve the Transportation Improvement Program amendments and modifications as presented?
So moved.
Your second?
Second.
All right, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? All right, thank you. So that takes us to 11, moving toward 2050.
We are, let me screen. All right, so we are moving through the needs identification process, and we are ready to start talking about projects now. So as a reminder, we have been talking to you all, well, that didn't work. Bear with me. Okay. We have been talking with you all about identifying how do we identify the needs. So we identified the evaluation metrics that we are going to use to look at the entire network to help us identify where are there needs on our roadway segments. We developed the thresholds that we would use to define what constitutes a need in each of those evaluation metrics, and then we identified the weighting scenario. And so the preferred weighting scenario, based on the public feedback, based on your all's direction, was to use the accessibility-focused weighting scenario. So that determined how much weight each of these evaluation metrics contributed to identifying the overall needs. I do want to point out that while we did receive the transit on-time performance data, it didn't look exactly the way that we anticipated it looking from the transit providers. So we're going to go back and look at this, but that specific metric is not included as part of our analysis. It's not likely to impact the needs identification though, because it's such a low percentage of the overall score. But we will look at it just to make sure it doesn't make an adjustment. So when we ran this analysis, this is using, just throw some caveats out there first, this is using a data-driven approach to identify, based on this analysis, what might be a need, and that's just going to be one level of analysis that we're doing. We're also going to go back and screen through the public feedback that we received to see where there might be additional needs that have been discussed by the public. And then we're also going to, I think, recommend looking at the PSI locations separately, and also looking at the travel demand model separately to determine, are there any needs that might be a really high need of one of those categories that aren't picked up when we aggregate over a lot of areas. So this is intended to inform our discussion. This is not intended necessarily to end the discussion and say that we're only going to consider projects if they're highlighted on this network. So once we aggregated these across several project areas, there was one that met the threshold of medium-high priority need, which means that it had an aggregated score between 5 and 7 across all of those factors. And that is the section of 29 between 250 and Greenbrier Drive. When we go down to the next tier, so these are projects that had an aggregated score between 4 and 5 out of 7 points would be the highest if something scored the highest threshold on every single one of the metrics. You start seeing more needs identified along 29, and you start seeing these projects along 10th Street, Bridge and 5th Street, some projects along, or some segments along Ryder Road start popping up as well. And then when we go down to our medium, low priority needs, which was the next step, so between projects that scored aggregated between 3 or 4, starts expanding a little bit more. We see more needs indicated along 250, Emmett Street and Ivy Road. 29 continues to be some projects, Riot Road continues to be some needs. And then if we look at projects, or at the segments that scored, just a need in general, but not at this medium low priority need level or higher, you'll see all these additional green segments that start popping up. So again, this is intended to sort of be one way to review the data in full to determine where is there a need that potentially we may not see if we just start looking at the projects that we've already identified. And then if we look at the public feedback, I just wanted to share this map. This is a heat map of where we receive public comments. So this heat map includes all the public comments that we received through the MetroQuest survey that we conducted for the long-range transportation plan, all of the in-person engagement that we conducted as part of the long-range transportation plan, feedback from CVille Plans Together, feedback from the Albemarle County Comprehensive Plan, and the Regional Transit Vision Plan. So the next step is going to be to overlay this data together, and then also take a look at where all of the most updated potential for safety improvement locations are, and also just compare this against the operational assessments based on the travel demand model. And then the MPO staff is going to start working with the locality staff to vet the overall list of projects that we have queued up, to start looking at where do we have projects that align well with the needs that we've identified. What are the projects that the localities have determined as high priority needs to pursue over the next couple of years? And where are there gaps in needs that have been identified in this process as maybe an area that needs some attention, but we don't have a project lined up yet? And that will help inform what our planning priorities are going to be. So any questions on this right now?
Yes, please. So this is part of the moving toward 2050 framework, which used to be called the LRTP.
It still
It's
is.
still.
Yeah, it's still the same thing.
Branded as midfield.
And so the link that's in the packet here, completed needs assessment outputs.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it wasn't like in the packet itself, I missed the link, so I'm having to catch up here.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. That's really just data though. That's all the data that is associated with all of these maps right here. If you want to go in and explore anything in further detail, all of that data is here.
Okay.
This really isn't intended to stop anything from being considered. This is really just demonstrating what the analysis that we've been talking about has highlighted.
Okay.
So if you want to go in and look at that data, ask questions, kind of see like maybe why things are scoring where they are, that information is available to explore.
Okay.
But we're going to create a more public, like friendly interface to explore this data as well. I just wanted to be updating you all as it becomes available.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. So next month we should be talking about, we'll start talking about projects.
Any questions?
Next month is the everything month.
Everything, all the exciting things.
Those are photos, right?
So that takes us to item 12, staff updates. We have the section 5310 mobility management grant application, Lucinda.
So we're applying for funding for the mobility management program. As Sandy said, it started up this month, and we have our 800 number. People are calling in and getting assistance finding rides through JABA's counselors. We're applying for funding for fiscal year 2025, and we'll be adding a staff person halfway through fiscal year 2025.
We will be applying to add a staff person.
Yes.
Assuming we get it funded.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's all.
All right, any questions there? And then the regional safety summit update? Kurtz?
Just give a brief update on that. So we had the regional safety summit about 2 weeks ago. Thank you to those of you who attended, including Councilor Kingston. And there was also good representation from the county. Jessica was there amongst others. So thank you all for coming. We're going to be going to all of the jurisdictions in the coming weeks to seek letters of commitment from all of you as part of our SS4A grant, which we're calling Move Safely Blue Ridge. This is something that's required for the grant, and it's basically committing you all to engage actively in the process of developing this plan and committing to try to reduce and eliminate deaths and serious injuries on the roadway network. If you have any questions, just let me know. That's all. Thank you.
All right. And then that will take us to item 13, additional matters from the public. Is there anyone in the room who wishes to give additional comment? Is there anyone online that wishes to give additional comment? All right, we will close matters from the public.
Yeah.
Yeah, was there one? Oh, you probably said, oh, I had one that popped in there. So that will take it, yeah, we caught up here in a hurry, didn't we? So the last item is adjourn, and if there is no objection, we will adjourn until the February MPO scheduled meeting. Thank you all.
Thank you.
6:01, I was worried there for a minute.
Thank you, everyone.
I was worried for about 45 minutes.
During this meeting, and I